Welcome to the Family Matters Mega Summit. Your host for this session is Mila Johansen. Mila is a public speaking, writing, and publishing coach who helps speakers across the globe. Take it away, Mila.
All right, we're here with Randy Rolfe, and her title of her talk is Healthy People, Healthy Planet. And she's a best-selling author of 9 books on parenting, nutrition, and family, which have helped many thousands of people have happier, healthier lives. She has been happily married to her college sweetheart for over 50 years, and they now have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. Oh my goodness, that's great. I've been married to my husband for 45 years, Randy. So that's wonderful. And so go ahead and tell us about what you do with people to, help people be more healthy, and about the books you've written about it.
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Mila. It's a pleasure to be with this wonderful group to help families around the world. I had actually traveled every summer with my family from the time I was 9 to 20. We spent 6 weeks in some other part of the world and leaving from the Philadelphia area in the US. And so I really got this sense of how much we all had in common. We spoke different languages, we dressed differently, and ate different food, and maybe called God by a different name. But when I was that age, we just played with other teenagers and kids when I started, when I was 9. And I really wanted to find a way to help make world peace. I just didn't see any purpose for nations fighting. And so I decided to become a lawyer to do international diplomacy. But then I met my
Wow.
husband in college. I did become a lawyer, and I practiced to learn about the structures of society and what corporations do and what the place of the individual is in the world and in their community and in their country. But then I realized that jumping around as a diplomat was not going to give me the family life I wanted. So when we got married, I worked in Philadelphia as a lawyer for a couple of years, learned a lot. But then we decided to break out of the yuppie world, and we bought an old farmhouse up in upstate New York, and we decided we would be writers, right? So that's when we had our 2 kids, and we were close to nature. We had raw milk coming from the dairy down the street, and we ran out of money and came back. But we rebuilt a wonderful house. So all we knew, you need warmth, you need shelter from the weather, you need food, and that's about it. So it was so wonderful to build the house by ourselves and heat with wood and cook with wood. So we saw that side of it too. And I had a very privileged childhood, but then I'd seen all these different ways of living all over the world. And I realized I had no idea how to cook. So I decided to teach myself how to cook. And being a doctor's daughter, I thought, well, I'll just do the research and find out what should I be cooking now that I know how to cook. And that's when that put me on the path to nutrition. Meanwhile, with our 2 little kids, we were doing so well because we tried to do everything as natural as possible. And people asked me why it was going so easily for us. And I said, well, we did a lot of thinking and we did a lot of reading and we watched other people and we tried to do everything as close to nature as possible. And, I breastfed my kids. And even when we came to schooling, we were like, why do we need schooling? So we did that as naturally as we possibly could too. So the nutrition, it was just so easy to help families get over irritability and poor sleep and being depressed and having no energy if they just learn to feed their family right. So I've written books on family relationships, on parenting, but there's always a section on nutrition because we have to take care of our bodies and our minds. And I keep reminding people that the brain it's an organ like anything else. Of course, that's where our spirit and our beliefs are, but it also is completely dependent on getting the energy and the nutrition from the diet that we're putting into our body and from our breath and the water. So nutrition is so core, and it's a critical issue around the world. And we need to realize our bodies are designed for real food. So my newest book, the single ingredient diet, is about going back to real food. And if we can create healthy people, healthy families, we will have a healthy planet, because so much of our problems today are about people being irritable and angry and destroying the environment with too many chemicals and too much plastic and wasteful energy. So it all goes back to getting back as close as we can and living to in harmony with nature.
You and I have so much in common because we both homeschooled our kids. We called it unschooling back then. And we went out and did real things, which I'm going to be speaking about later today. But also, I came from gangland in LA, and I ended up going to school in Northern California in Chico, and I married an organic farmer. And I've been an organic farmer for the past 40 years with him, growing citrus. So we have a lot in common, as far as, organic food. Let's be back to nature. I love that you've written 9 books and that you're writing about nutrition. And could you tell us a little bit about the other countries you've lived in?
Oh, well, I've lived, I have a house in Canada, so I've lived in that, but the other countries we just went and visited. My parents
Oh,
didn't want to fly because they didn't trust planes, so we went by ship. So I always got this feeling of distance and how big and wonderful the world is. And so I've been in 33 countries. We spent a summer going down the west coast of South America, and a summer in Egypt and Greece, and a summer in Italy, a summer in France and England, a
wow.
summer in the Philippines and Australia, and we went to Japan and China. So I really have a worldview that you can relate to anybody, and as so many of the people today are saying, we're just people, and we can relate. We can speak non-verbally with others. As kids, we would meet each other and just smile and start playing ping pong, or throwing some cards around, or just jogging around the deck on the ship, or going to I remember going to the Tivoli playground in Denmark, with some other kids. You just and if your kids have that kind of perspective, uh, they it doesn't matter the color of the skin or what clothes or what they eat and that kind of thing. If they're eating good food, they will be happy kids. And if the parents are loving them and setting a good example, that's so important, setting a good example. So my very first book was about parenting. It was called You Can Postpone Anything But Love, because I believe the key is in any given moment to take the time to know where you are and what your influence is in this situation. Don't take everything personally. It has nothing to do with you. It's what's your power in this moment. So the power of your choice. So it affects everything. Are you going to think, oh, well, the child's being defiant, I'm going to put them down? Or are you going to say, oh, what's bothering you? Same with your diet. Are you going to go for the donut, or are you going to have the banana? I mean, every minute you're making little choices all the time. And today's digital world is kind of trying to take our choices away, to give you too many, so you just click. You have the power in the moment to decide whether you're going to be happy and have the influence you want, or are you going to be reactive and not happy. And it works with all the food. Are you going to just take 20 minutes to cook up some good whole food, or are you just going to get on the phone and order some takeout? It's a moment's decision, but you're always free to make that decision.
Yes, and to teach children that at a young age. I heard when my daughter was young that whatever I fed her for the first 2 to 5 years, she would go back to eating when she was older. And I've noticed, because I've taught a lot of kids and families theater, and I've seen that happen. And my daughter has gone back to eating very strict, very healthy, even though she got off that as a teenager. So what do you think about that? Do you think that's true?
Yes, very true. I've been I've been counseling now, 2 or 3 generations, so I see that happening. And yes, your kids are entitled to press the envelope, try things, say, "Oh my gosh, all my friends are eating white bread and beer," and they'll try it for a few years. But if they know, if they've had that healthy childhood. I remember when my son was living with a bunch of guys, and he said, Mom, I don't get sick during the winter and they do. It's because of the
Oh,
way they're eating. So they go back
mhm.
to what they know works, because kids are smart. And if you expose them to a good lifestyle, set a good model, they might say, "Oh, you're fuddy-duddy, I'm going to try something else." But if things go wrong, they know where to come back to, what habits that you laid down for them. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I was glad someone told me that, and then I counted on that, and it worked. I was so happy about that. That's wonderful. So tell us some more about your books and your work, and what is your biggest passion right now, Randy? Sorry, Randy.
Um,
What is your biggest
oh,
passion?
that's a great question. My passion is to help people appreciate that they can trust themselves, trust their body if they give it good food, trust their heart if they're responding to their husband or their wife or their child or their friend or even their employer or their employee. Um, Trust that inner wisdom, and as long as you are centered yourself, spend time on yourself so that you know your role, you have a sense of your purpose in this world, then you don't have to be threatened by anything on the outside. You can use your power outwards instead of trying to be defensive. So my passion is really to show people the power of choice in the moment. And if they're out with friends that say, "Oh, let's have pepperoni pizza," um, yeah, you can have a piece, but you know that the other 6 days of the you're eating great food, so your body will be able to handle it. But if you're out eating pizza every night and you're getting donuts on the way to work, your body is going to tell you it's not going to keep going. And it's a big myth I want to get out of the popular mind, that our bodies just start falling apart at 40. I've done
Mm,
the research, I've shown, and in my book I show that the reason people say, "Oh, life expectancy used to be 40," it was because kids died. We the Before five, very high death rate, and women were dying in childbirth. But if you live to 40 or 50, throughout history, you had another 30, 40, even 50 years. And you can go back in history if you look at their dates. There's all kinds of kings and queens and diplomats and religious leaders that lived to their 80s and 90s. And if we can't do that in the 21st century, there's something wrong with the way we're eating.
yeah, good point. My grandmother had her career till 94 and died at 98, and she was a vitamin taker, and she ate decently. So we have that to look forward to. So wow, that's really great advice and interesting. And do you follow all that? Is that how you eat also yourself?
Yes, yes, actually, I've been taking pictures of our dinners, and I am just
Mm,
starting to get ready to put them up on whatever, Instagram or whatever. But I do regular videos all the time on Facebook and Instagram and about nutrition. But some people nowadays are just scared to even try to cook because they love the taste of the ultra refined foods. But the ultra processed foods are deliberately altered to make the taste just so addictive. And so we need to get away from those chemicals. They're chemically manipulating us to get sick, basically, because that's where the degenerative diseases are coming from. They're not because your family had some problems. You have to look at how they ate. And it's not that you're genetically prone to something. Well, yeah, everybody has genetic tendencies, but 75 to 80% of it is lifestyle. And the other big myth is that, oh, if you just exercise enough, you can eat anything you want. Well, that's true if it's food, but most of what we're eating is not food anymore. It's food that's been taken in and manipulated mechanically, chemically, and then they add all kinds of chemicals to make it look like a blueberry or taste like chicken, but it's not. They put the chemicals in because they know, and they learned it. They learned it in the 80s and 90s. They learned how to make something taste like something when it isn't the something, but your body wants the something. So we just keep eating because we're looking for those vitamins and the minerals and the fiber that our body needs to function properly. And we're just being fed chemicals and altered foods, concentrated nutrients that aren't working well with our bodies. The sugars, the starches, pure white flour, it's nothing. It just turns to sugar in our body. And it's no wonder that diabetes is an epidemic. But you can turn it around in 2 months. I've done that with kids that were diagnosed with diabetes. Just the mom was crying. She says, "How can he be diabetic at 12?" And I'm like, "Well, let's look at his diet." So 2 months later, she said, they're saying he's not diabetic anymore.
So
So
that
you can turn
can
these
people
things
come to
around.
you?
That's the other thing.
Yeah. Is that something you do? Like if even an adult would come to you, you'd help them turn it around with their diet?
Absolutely. Yes. I have a 7-week course now on the single ingredient diet. So I go from your belief
Ooh,
system to what do you put on the frying pan in 7 weeks, weekly sessions.
I love that. I might need that with you. And one thing to consider is, we didn't have pesticides until 1960s. I mean, basically, with, Rachel telling us about them and being unpopular for that. And genetically modified foods. So we want to go back to as pure as we can. I'm sure that's what you're saying. Now, I think you have a gift for everyone. Do you want to talk about the gift that you're going to be giving today? And then in a week, we're having a gift giveaway so everyone can get it also then you get a new email.
Yes, well, one of my favorite talking topics is the 5 habits that give you an extra 10 years free of degenerative disease. So that
Mm.
means if you're expecting you're going to have cardiovascular problems at 70, well, at least you can wait till 80. And it's a short report based on a wonderful big study involving 200,000 people. They just looked at their lifestyles and were they doing 4 of these 5 things. So I'm not going to tell you what they are, so you'll ask for the download, but that's my free gift.
And it's right there in chat for anyone to grab, and it will be on the big gift giveaway next week also. That's really great. I think I need that. Even though I eat really well and everything, I think I need a coach. I think we all need a little coaching on different things.
I love
So
doing that because once people understand the myths that are being pounded into our heads and the power of the body. This afternoon, actually one of my classes, I'm going to focus on believing in your body. How does your body work? And how does it use food? And why does it fall apart? If it does, and we can prevent that usually.
of course. Oh my gosh, that's really good advice. And that you're on a mission to do that with people. And when you went around the world and you went to different countries, did those diets affect how you help people with their diets now?
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
did you take a
Yes.
little bit from each country? Yeah.
Yeah, when raising my kids, we often focused on Indian diet or a Chinese diet or a Irish diet to give them an idea that the humans have populated the world because we eat whatever's edible in the area. And we spent thousands of years figuring out what was edible. If we ate something that was poisonous, that family didn't continue. So we know what's edible and in different areas. So we don't have to argue about, oh, should we be vegetarian or should we be carnivores? It all depends on where the local food was. And now we can get food from anywhere, uh, and do, but it's very expensive transporting all around the world, and very hard on the climate because of all the energy we use to move foods around. So it makes a lot of sense to eat what's local in season, and that's one of my guidelines. And then special times you can have special grains from Africa or special fruits from the Middle East. But just get used to, or often going back to your own ethnic background can be very useful. I remember talking to an Armenian group, and I said, eat whatever your grandmother did because she's in her 80s or 90s and you want to stay healthy like that. So go to your Armenian shop and get that food. And oh, the grandmothers loved me giving that lecture.
Yeah, oh, that's wonderful. And so how can people get started? I mean, instead of a big chunk, do all this all at once. What are some tips that they could start with that would be easy and get going and not feel overwhelmed?
That's a great question. I was reading when I was educating myself. I would tell my husband at breakfast what I was learning, and after about a year, I said, "I think I just have to throw everything out and start over." And he said, "Oh, okay, good." And he thanks me at least once a week for keeping him healthy these 55 years. But not everybody's going to do that. So yes, their question is really good. And that's why I called my book The Single Ingredient Diet. Try
Oh,
as much as possible to just eat single ingredient foods. And don't bother with the nutrition label. You want real foods because they do have the vitamins and minerals and fiber and protein that you need. But look at the ingredient lists, and if your grandmother wouldn't recognize that stuff, then don't buy that. Go and buy the oats or the fillet of fish or the apples or the snap peas and broccoli and cabbage. And we don't eat enough cabbage or squash in this country. And the Indians who lived here lived on squash and peppers and corn and cabbage. So uh, learn to get the second part of my book is all about getting acquainted again with real foods. If you have you know, fry a little seaweed in butter, it tastes better than any chip you've ever had, literally.
ah. Huh? I love seaweed. Well, yeah, and just start simply, right? Well, now we need to kind of move on to wrap this up. And I love all this advice you've given us. Thank you so much. And everyone, look for her books. She has the single ingredient diet, and I listed another one up there. You can just look at her list. Yeah, show us your book. Oh, that's a
The single
beautiful
ingredient
book.
diet, transform your relationship to food in 21 days.
And sure, if you go on Amazon and look up her name, Randy Rolfe, you can find all her books in a row. Usually that's where they are. And then you could, pick and choose. And that's a beautiful book. That's gorgeous.
Thank you.
And I know 'cause I make books. But anyway, so everybody remember today, if you want to hear all the talks at your leisure later, there's over 100 of all these beautiful wisdoms. Go ahead and invest in the VIP. It doesn't cost very much and you'll get that. And then also make sure you get our book, The Parenting Owner's Manual, with 4 wonderful contributors, even a few kids telling us how parents should parent. And some of them are TED Talk speakers, the kids. So this is an amazing book, and you can get it right now on Amazon. It's important to have on your bookshelf in your library. And so anyway, I'm so excited, and thank you, Randy. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you, Mila.
contribution today.
My pleasure. I look forward to hearing you.
Okay, see you later.
That was an amazing
See you guys all the next
speaker.
talk. Oh, Dr. L's
Join us
speaking
in a
next,
few
so go to that track and listen to him.
That was an amazing speaker. Join us in a few minutes when more amazing experts share their expertise. Support our calls by donating to UNICEF, and don't forget to upgrade to VIP, where you'll get gifts and bonuses and replays and more.